So one of my friends told me, they were like, oh, like you should shoot it like that, and then you should also take off your glasses. And for a second, I was like, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna do exactly the way I want to do it, the way that makes me happy. Because again, I'm not doing this based off of trying to get the right amount of views. I'm not trying to get the right amount of things. I'm wearing glasses because it's sunny, and honestly, it makes me feel comfortable. I'm also shooting like this because I want to shoot this angle. I'm not going into this trying to do anything specific. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to get more views. Like it would be nice, but like that's not the goal of this. The goal is to allow people to freely paint on the canvas the way that they want to paint, right? And I guess I can touch on something. I had a perfect vision of making a film a couple years ago, and I was like, I want to make a feature. I want to make a feature film. I want to make a feature film. That was my biggest goal. I was like, I want to make a movie. And I finally had the chance to. During COVID, everything shut down, and I was in Chicago. And I had saved up money. I heard about the Christopher Nolan story, how he made his first feature with $6,000. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna write a feature in like 2 weeks. So I sat in a basement, knocked out a script, used the inspo of what was kind of around me and what was kind of going on with the world. And I think I had like 10,000 saved or something like that at the time. So I was going to take this 10,000 and make this film. But it actually was harder to make. Partially it was easier to make the film because there was nobody outside, right? Because everybody was in quarantine. But on another end, it was very difficult because all the laws and regulations of like having COVID testing and having a doctor on set and just having limited amount of people on set, it made it very complicated. And I actually had to, I thought that I would be taking shortcuts to make this movie, but I had to go through the film commission. I had to get, I got SAG actors, so they're a union, and I learned a lot through that process. And over the course of like 10 days or almost 2 weeks, we shot the movie, and it was very intense. Like I pulled in a lot of favors. And
Ladies first.
had to work on people's time, so things were just rushed on a certain end. And the movie's called The Gold Coast, and it was about this world that had suffered what's called the phase, and everybody basically had died all around the world, and basically only one place, this utopia called the Gold Coast, was safe. And every year they pick one person from outside the Gold Coast to come inside. It's like a lottery, like who wants to come into the Gold Coast.
I lost my mother to the phase 4 years ago, and my father, the last of my family, followed her a month ago. I never really thought about leaving the outside until he passed. But now that he's gone and I have no remaining siblings and no family, I figured I'd give this a shot. To say that life on the outside isn't easy is an understatement.
And you're vetted, and they interview you, and then if a family likes you, if a family likes you, they have a raffle, and they draw the raffle, and then they get to pick who they want to come into the Gold Coast.
Maya, your story was incredible, and it really touched us. Believe it or not, we were just like you at one point. It's true. We didn't even know each other until we came to the Gold Coast.
And essentially, when you come into the Gold Coast, you live a life where you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay for a chauffeur, you don't have to pay for food, you don't have to pay for anything, right? And so this girl wins, and she comes to the Gold Coast, and things are great at first, but over time, things begin to reveal itself. And so, shot this movie, and I started editing it after I was finished with it, but ran into a lot of things because certain scenes had to be reshot, then ADR and different things. I didn't like certain shots at certain places because we were rushed and all this. And like overall, the feel of the movie felt nice, but there were certain scenes that just had gaps that I felt like stopped it from being a full actual movie that I felt like I would appreciate. And long story short, going back with like to trying to do the ADR and trying to do these different things, I just kind of took a pause on the movie because it was just not like it was a headache. It was just I outgrew it. Like I outgrew the person that wanted to make that film. And so by the time that I actually was getting done with it, I was like, this is not the type of story that I want to tell. And so I guess I just want to say it's like sometimes you outgrow yourself. Sometimes you just outgrow yourself and you're just like, oh, like I'm not passionate about this anymore. Like and you could start and you can start writing like something or start making something, and then by the end of it, the learning was not in like the final product. It was actually in the process of doing it, right? Because now that I made that film, right, which is it's incomplete, like it's on a hard drive, but initially when I started making that film, you know, I was almost influenced by so many other things, and I just like kind of like wrapped it all into this thing and just like made it, and in the end I wasn't passionate about it. So when I saw like some of the cuts of it, it felt inauthentic to who I was as a person in a way. And on one end, it's like I like to watch movies like that, but for me and where I come from and my background, I just felt like there was like some disconnect, right? And you know, I have this concept that, okay, if I had like $1 million budget, $2 million budget to actually shoot that movie, would it have turned out different? Probably. But I think generally in the story of the film that I was trying to make, I think I was just trying to make a movie instead of like trying to actually tell a story.
No one's ever here. Yellow!
If you don't have that connection, then you won't even see it through to the end because your why isn't strong enough. And so that's why I never finished my first feature film. And I actually heard that Quentin Tarantino had a similar story where he made a movie, and it's called My Best Friend's Birthday, and he never actually finished it because he said he didn't like it. But he said that it was his film school, and that's what prepped him to make Reservoir Dogs. So I think that it's very important that if you have these goals, you still set out to do them, because even if you think of it as a failure, it's not a failure, because I still shot for 10 days. I still went through the film commission with Chicago and worked with cinematographers and like set up scenes in the middle of the city, like working with actors and just shooting over the course of 10 days and trying to tell a narrative, right? That made me a better filmmaker. And it's actually funny because right after that, I actually started working on a lot more big budget commercials and actually my storytelling got better because you need to know what you don't want to do to know what you do want to do. And so that was my story with making that movie. And you know, going back to what my friend said about me wearing glasses and me having a different angle. Could I have a different angle for this? Sure. But do I care? No. Why don't I care? Because I want to do what I want to do. I'm not doing it for them. I'm not doing it for anybody else but besides myself. And that's what I'm trying to get across today. It's like people can have their opinions about things, but don't be a people pleaser. Don't sit there and try to like ask yourself, what do you want to do? I think if your goal is to get millions of views, then you can make your video structurally in a certain way. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to be inauthentic to yourself, and you might not connect with it the same way that I ended up not connecting with my film at the end of it after spending $10,000 in, you know, almost a half a year trying to edit it and get it to a point where, you know, I was happy with it. Something was off about it because I wasn't authentic with it. And so save yourself the trouble, be yourself, and do what you like to do. Doesn't mean you need to be mad or like angry or clap back when somebody's like, oh, like if they give you advice, if they give you unsolicited advice, just listen. But if you yourself are content with yourself, you just kind of listen, and then you go home and do the exact same thing that you were going to do because you're not doing it for them, right? And so I think that's what we have brains for. It's like advice is based on whether you want the results that they want. if the result that you want is the same result that they want, then like if you're like I want to get a 6-pack in 8 days, and they show you the only technique to get a 6-pack in 8 days, then you follow that technique, right? But if you don't want a 6-pack and you just want like whatever, and they're trying to be like, oh, like, you know what, you should do this if you want to, and you would just be like, okay, you listen, but then go home and do whatever you feel like is right, you know? So that's basically it. You guys have a blessed day.